Okay, today's mini lesson, still dealing with prerequisite skills, linear systems of equations. Now, this is something that you spend a fair amount of time on in grade 10. And so what you did, first of all, is what did it mean to solve a linear system? It meant that you were finding the point of intersection between lines, if there was one that existed. And you did it a few different ways in grade 10. The first way you did it was through graphing. And you soon discovered that graphing was not the best way because you would have to graph very, very accurately. And if something was 1.5 or 1.4, it was very difficult to tell what that point of intersection was. So then what your teacher did in grade 10 is you solved it algebraically. And there was two different ways that you solved it algebraically. One was through substitution and the other was through elimination. Now, both of these were methods that you used. Eventually, you'd probably liked elimination better than substitution. Now, for the skills that we're going to need for this unit, elimination is not going to be what we want because we're actually going to be looking at systems that deal with both parabolas and lines together. So elimination is much harder to do. So we're going to be looking at one example of using substitution. So the question says solve the systems. It's actually just one system of equations. And actually, I'm just going to make that disappear so you know you can just stroke out that S, that plural. Okay, so when I look at this, I have two lines, and the reason I'm going to do it by substitution is a couple different reasons. One, I have a y by itself on the one side of the equation, so for one of the equations, so that makes it set up pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute this equation into the more complicated linear equation. And what we do first of all is we're going to label our equations. So this first one we're going to call number 1. Okay, and the other one we're going to call number 2. Now the reason we do that is so that when someone else is looking over our work, they can actually see what we're doing because we're going to tell them. So the first thing I'm going to tell them is I'm going to say sub 1 into 2. It's that simple. So I'm going to take this equation, substitute it into number 2. So I'm going to take that number 2 equation, which is 4x minus 3, but instead of putting the y, I'm not going to put it in right away. I'm going to put this y in because this y equals 8 minus x. So I'm literally going to put 8 minus x into the second equation's y. Okay, and then I continue it by finishing equation number 2 minus 3. Okay, now what I'm doing, it's no longer two equations, it's one equation with one variable, which means I can solve it. So the next thing I'm going to do, obviously, is I'm going to take that negative 3 and I'm going to distribute it into the next bracket. So I have a 4x minus a 24 plus a 3x equals negative 3. Again, gathering like terms, a 4x plus a 3x is a 7x. And I have a negative 24 and on the other side of negative 3. So I'm now going to add 24 to both sides. So I get all the number portions to the one side. So I end up with a positive 21. And again, I'm going to divide both sides by 7. And I end up with x equals 3. So a little bit different at this grade 11 stage. I don't need to see you literally go divide by 7 on both sides. You don't have to show me that. If you're at this level, you don't probably need that anymore. You're doing it in your head. Now, I'm not finished this question because remember, to solve a system means I'm finding the point of intersection. A point has two coordinates, an x coordinate and a y coordinate. So the next thing I have to do is I have to find what the y is. So I don't want to keep using up a whole lot of paper, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell the person, follow my arrow. So now I'm going to continue my solution over here. So now I want to tell the person that I'm going to take this x equals 3 and I'm going to substitute it into one of these equations. Now remember, I'm after y, so it makes sense in this case that I choose equation 1. So I'm going to tell the person, I'm going to say sub x equals 3 into number 1. And when I do that, I end up with y equals 8 minus 3, which is not too bad. And 8 minus 3 is 5. So I actually have the solution now, but remember, you're finding the point of intersection, so I should then also tell them, therefore, rounded brackets, 3, 5 is my solution. Okay, so I'm sure you remember doing that. The elimination, there was a little bit more work where you had to multiply equation 1 by something, equation 2 by something. But as I said, the substitution is what we're more interested in. So there's a few questions in your textbook for you to solve now, and you probably could do another lesson as well, because it won't take you very long.